I studied in England for a
Right,
few years. The story is that while I was in England, I got into a fight. Oh, when was the first time you heard this story, Bo? 30 years, di ba? Mga 30 years na to. Oh. Anyway, the story is that while I was in England, I went into a pub. And as happens in pubs, I got into a fight. In that fight, yung nakaaway ko, sinaksak ako, patay ako. I'm dead. Bongbong is dead. So, this is where it gets interesting. My parents then decided to find another boy who looked like me, who was the same age as me, and present that as me, or their son to the public. And that the person you see now is the replacement, not the original. That's the story.
You sound like your dad, though.
Huh?
You sound like your dad. Everybody says online.
Well, I do sound like my
You
dad.
sound like your dad, mannerisms, pati ubo daw.
But wala ka magagawa. I have many of the same genes.
Oh, you're
No,
right.
in any case, speaking of genes, the suggestion was immediately raised. Oh, may DNA na ngayon. Magpa-test
Oo nga
ka
pala.
para maliwanag na maliwanag. Sabi ko, iniisip ko na mabuti, sabi ko, hindi, okay din maging urban legend eh. Di ba? Pagka naayos ko na yung problema, pagka na-prove ko na ako na, wala na yung urban legend, wala na tayong pag-uusapan. Sabi ko, so let the story go. And it's funny though, because when I go to schools and I open the floor, this subject comes up. Are you the real Bongbong? And
Who asked that question, though?
kids.
Oh, they know the
Yeah,
story.
they know the story.
Because I thought you were the only ones who knew it.
No, lots. It comes up everywhere. And there's nothing you can do to even siguro pag pa-DNA ako na i-prove it, iba na yan, whatever, dinuto na lang yung result.
Live natin, live stream.
Huh?
Yung DNA testing.
I don't know. I'm in two minds about whether the DNA thing is a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
DNA testing is a good idea, but that is a story that has gone on and on and on and on, and no matter. And the way I explain is that it's really very easy to dig up old newspapers. When my father first became president, I was 7 years old. So look at my pictures from the time I was 7 years old to the time I was 8, 9, until the time we left for the United States, until 86. That's 20 years worth of pictures. And then compare them to me now. And I think naman, you cannot fake that much, you know. And the other question that always bugs me is that, why would my parents do such a thing? Think about it. Ay, naku, namatay yung anak natin. Hanap tayo ng kamukha niya, tapos wag natin papaalam kahit na kanino na namatay. Ihaharap natin. Why would they do that? What possible motivation would have my parents have? At most, they'll say, we'll make another boy, we'll have another son. But not find one that is exactly the same, that's of the same age, nakamukha. Kawawa naman ako, na siguro na plastic surgery pa ako para maging kamukha. I mean, you know, it's just such a ridiculous notion, but I guess it's such a fun story that people don't want to give it up. And now that DNA is available, it looks like even I don't want to give it up.
You've lived 30 years with it.
No, I'm enjoying it too much already.
Okay, I have a question.
What are the words that you live by that you remember from your father? Are there any words that you remember him saying?
I remember many things he says, and there's not just one thing. I have to explain it this way. My father never, you know, when I talked about earlier that I learned many things from my father. I have many lessons that I know I got from my father. Never did my father sit us down and say the lesson for today is. It was never like that.
No, something that you hear.
We would follow him around, see what he did. We would do it. And my father would allow us to walk into any meeting, to read any paper. Siyempre, lahat ng mga for the president's eyes only. Anak ko, yan ang unang hahanapin. But by allowing us to be that way, we learned about what he was doing and began to understand why he did certain things. And even if it was instinctive and in our subconscious, those lessons were nevertheless learned. They're in us. Kaya nga sinasabi ko, kung minsan I am confronted by a situation, I know how to react. I find I know what to do. And I don't know why I know. And I said, saan ang galing yun? And it must have been something I picked up from the old man. Must have been some situation, similar situation that we confronted earlier. So, see, I guess it's this idealism it has to do with idealism. We were discussing once a plan, just some development plan, and at every step that I would say, pero dad, di pwede yan. Pero dad, hindi matutuloy na ganyan yan. And he said, always plan for the idea. It may never happen, but you must always plan for the idea. You always work towards the idea. Of course, we are not God, so we will never achieve the idea. But at least by working towards the ideal, you will get closer and closer and closer to it. And I turned to him and I said, what a romantic notion. And he said, I never saw you as a romantic person. And he looked at me and he says, without romance, there is no courage. Without romance, there is no idealism. Where would we be then? Okay. Yes, sir.
Nice.
Question.
It's true, no? If you think about it, totoo.
Are you a romantic person?
I try very hard to be because I want to be idealistic and I want to be brave.
Congressman, I've written in the past regarding the issue of the late president's proper burial.
Oh.
I was saying that he must be buried in the Libingan of Miami, according to all former heads of state.
Yes.
Now, recently, I was told, I did not monitor it, that Noemi Aquino was supposing to block this possibility. I don't know how true that was. What are your thoughts on that? Are you pushing for your father?
Yeah, well, no, it's been the position of my family that it is his right as a former soldier
Former soldier.
and a the bemedaled and decorated soldier of World War II, and as the longest serving president in our history. It is only right that he be buried in the Libingan ng Mampayani. It is set out. It is very clearly laid out, and that policy has been unquestioned ever since it began. But this is another situation where the decisions for that were not made on a legal basis or on a righteous basis, but on a political basis. And until this is resolved, the polarization that began in 1986 will never be over. We will never have true unity in this country until you put these, because dinalagyan na naman ng kulay ng politika. Tanggalin mo yung politika dyan and let us get back to common sense. And in that way, the issue is finished. We can move on. The country can move on. Now, it is gratifying for us that all the presidential candidates have already said, at one point or another, that they would allow it. The LP candidate changed his position. When he was in Ilocano country, he said yes. When he got out of Ilocano country, he said no. So I don't know what was the thinking behind that, but at least the preponderance of opinion is to bury my father rightfully in the Libingan ng Mampayani.
Last two questions. Leslie, because you have another interview.
Who would ask? Yeah, do that.
Sure.
And Pat is next after you.
You have the Senate lineup. You have it's a very interesting mix.
Yeah.
You have Sotero Campo among other. How do you mix with Sotero Campo? How do you talk with him?
In the same way that I mixed with him and talked with him for 3 years as we sat next to one another in the opposition in the Batasan. Being together is not a new occurrence. I always teased the journalists. I said, nagkamayan lang kami ni Kasatud, linagay niyo na kami sa front page. Yung picture, linagay niyo sa front page. Kung gusto niyo ng picture na kami ni Kasatud nagkakamayan, ba't di kayo pumunta sa Batasan? Kahit anong araw, for the last 3 years, makikita mo kami nagkakamayan. So, it is something really that has been created. I guess the reporter